7 p.m. Sorry, I'd like to call the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to order. First of all, procedure notes. The meeting is being held electronically as per Section 19I of Town Procedure Bylaw number 6228-19, as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. Second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the revised agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? Anyone?
Matthew.
Matthew. Seconder?
Haley.
Haley. Thank you. Any questions, comments on the agenda? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that carries. Declarations of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations tonight? Move on to the receipt of the minutes. May I have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of November 11th, 2020?
Matthew.
Matthew. Second by
Haley.
Haley. Any comments, questions on the minutes? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? So that motion carries. Again, we have no delegations this evening. Go on to item number 6, matters for consideration. 6.1, memorandum from the Accessibility Advisor regarding Accessibility Advisory Committee input and comments for the site plan application. This is SPX 2020-28, 77 Wellington Street East. May I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Matthew, seconded by
Aye.
Max. All right. Matt, can you would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, I would. Thank you, John. So I've just flipped over to the memorandum that planning would have received from myself. It's for SPEX 2020-28. So this is actually a site plan application that we looked at earlier this year. I don't remember if it was either September or October. This was for 77 Wellington Street East, and it's currently a daycare that's in that location, and they are expanding to create an outdoor play space for the daycare. So we did receive this, and the comments you can see below were from the committee last time, and they were received by the developer and the owner of the location. And so we were mentioning that we wanted to receive feedback back on what will be in the outdoor play space available for the participants coming to join at that venue. And so on the second page, I'll leave it over here on the screen for everybody. I'm not going to go through them point by point. And so maybe I'll give you guys a brief cap of what is in the actual recommendations from the developer and the owner, and you guys can take a moment to kind of read through it. But what was mentioned basically, and so I just want to clarify one piece on this site plan. So there are no physical fixtures being implemented on this site plan. And so there is no permanent sensory spaces, slides, chairs, tables, any kind of features essentially that would be permanently at a playground or play space. They're not going to be implementing it. So it is basically going to be almost like a yard area. So that way they could just kind of let the children out and play in the new enclosed space. And so what they've basically gone ahead and done, which is probably a little bit more than we actually require. They could have basically just said that they just wanted to have an open space, but they have gone ahead and let us know what they plan on doing in terms of activities and what kind of games and things that they'd like to do in the area. And so maybe I'll give you guys a quick minute or two to just kind of read through the response that the applicant has given to the Accessibility Advisory Committee and see whether or not you guys have any specific feedback back to the applicant. But none of the pieces that would be in this memorandum would be legislatively required. And so I just want to point that out just to the committee. And so these are all things that they basically said that they plan on doing with the space, which goes above the requirements that we would request in the AODA. But I'll give you guys a minute or two to read through it, and I will flip over to the next page after a minute or two, once you guys have a chance to kind of read through the points. As you guys are going through the points, I'll just clarify as well. I paraphrased the email that I received back from the applicant. It was a little bit of a mess when I received it. And so I kind of put it all together for you guys to make it a little bit easier in terms of reading it. So I just wanted to put that in there as well. This is not directly what I received from the applicant. It's just a little bit more condensed version of what they were talking about. Is everyone okay with me flipping over to the next page? Anyone oppose that? Perfect. Oh, there you go. That was a quick one anyway. And so I'll open it back up to the committee. And I'll go back to the main page just because there's more content over there. Is there any feedback that we want to provide to the applicant? On top, like I said, there's nothing in terms of actual features or fixtures on this location that are being implemented. So there's nothing in the legislation that we would speak to. This would just be more of just using your expertise and your feedback that you might have in terms of what their plans are to be used in that area. Okay, John, I'm not hearing any feedback. So if you want to continue.
All right, so no further comments. I'll call the vote. I'm not sure what we're voting on, but I'll call it. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? So that carries as information received, I guess. All right, on to the next item, 6.2, memorandum from the accessibility advisor regarding accessibility advisory committee input and comments for site plan application for SP 2020-11. This is submission number 130 Addison Hall Circle. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Matthew, second by
Haley.
Ellie. So one, that the memorandum regarding accessibility advisory committee input and comments for site plan SP 2020-11, submission 1, be received. And that the accessibility advisory committee comments regarding accessibility advisory committee input, comments for site plan SP 2020-11, submission 130 Addison Hall Circle be received and referred to staff for consideration, action, and further action as appropriate. Would staff like to speak to the item?
Yep. So like John was mentioning, this is SP 2020-11. This is the first submission that we will be looking at for this specific site plan application. This is a very familiar space for the committee. We've been receiving a lot of different site plan applications for Addison Hall Circle. And so in front of you right now is my memorandum that I have sent out already to the planning team. And so you guys will obviously have that in front of yourselves, but I'm going to skip over to the actual site plan application and we can go through the comments that I've currently submitted over to the planning team. So I'm just going to skip over these 2 pages. This is the internal memorandum that would have been received by staff, which is myself. And so we'll start off with just a basic drawing of the actual plaza that we will be taking a look at. It's always nice to kind of see physically what they plan on looking at it. I know the site plan applications that I show you are never look like this. So just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. These drawings I will pass over, but we can refer back to them if need be. These are just basically the numbers in terms of what you can see on the site plan application, as well as the recommended and required parking spaces. And so if we need to refer to those, we can drop back, but we will focus on this specific site plan. And so a couple of things that I want to draw your attention to. Normally we start off with barrier-free parking. And so we'll go over to that. And so can everyone see my mouse circling over the site plan? Just want to make sure. Yes, okay, I'm seeing some nods. Perfect. And so over here, you can see where my mouse is going over on the bottom of the page. This is the actual street. So this is Addison Hall Circle. And so there's 2 entryway points into the specific site plan. And so you can see on the right side of the site plan application and on the left side, you have an entry and exit point for vehicles coming in. Currently, the barrier-free parking is situated on the left side. And I don't have my compass actually. Your faces are all in front of it, so I can't use northwest, south, or east for you. So I'll just stick to keeping it left, right, and up and down. But on the left side of this specific site plan application, you can see that they have the 3 barrier-free parkings spots associated for this specific site plan. I'll move over to show you where the actual barrier-free entrances are for this building. And so you can see that the main entrance is where my mouse is currently hovering over, which is associated with the 3 barrier-free parking spots that are shown on the site plan application. There are 2 more spots available to enter into this building, where you can see my mouse currently hovering on the right side of the application. And so a couple of the points that have been made for this specific site plan is to have more even distribution of the barrier-free parking. They do meet the requirements for how much parking is needed. So there's the 3 spots. We have 1 type A and 2 type B spots. What they are missing is accessible aisles that are associated with each of the barrier-free parking spots. And so I have made note of that in the memorandum back out to planning, that they do have to have an accessible aisle associated with each of the barrier-free parking. Just a reminder to everybody that accessible aisles can be shared between all barrier-free parking spots, but there needs to be 1 at least connected to each one of them. And so you can see where my mouse is currently hovering over the type A and the type B barrier-free parking spot, that they do share 1 accessible aisle, but the last barrier-free type B spot on the very right does not have an accessible aisle. So they will have to make that adjustment, ensuring that they have an accessible aisle and an associated curb depression to go along with it. And so my comments have those implemented for this specific memorandum. As always, we have also indicated that we want to ensure that all public entrances into the building have automatic door openers, including the proper time delays, to ensure that all entrances have accessibility. And that way we go above the OBC requirements of 50%. In the back, we're just going to turn our attention over to the rear of this facility. There is no barrier-free parking. There is no parking. There's no real entries for public to enter into these office spaces from the back, but this will be a trucking location. And so from the right side, you'll see that this is where the trucks would enter in and go out to the back of the facility. I know Joanne was not able to attend with us, but I know that's usually a concern for her whenever we're looking at these applications, with having trucks enter in and cross where the parking is for pedestrians. And so for this site plan application, you can see that the trucks would basically enter in from the right side of the site plan application, go to the back and have their parking. One of the comments I made for the couple of staircases where my mouse is currently hovering over the 3 spots over there is for them to ensure that they have tactile indicators for these specific staircases, just for extra precaution. But again, we don't have any public entrances into this area, and so we didn't ask for any automatic door openers into those entrances. The last piece that I did include, and this site plan does look like it has space, is for rest areas to be included along the exterior path of travel, along the entrances of this specific site plan application. And that was pretty much it. Overall, fairly well constructed site plan based on what I can see. I'll address the grade because I know Max usually likes to know the elevations. From everything that I took a look at for this site plan, there was no issues or concerns with the grade percentage. Everything was under 5%, which meets the AODA requirements. And so I will open up the committee to have comments on this site plan, if there's anything else they'd like to add in.
Anyone? So I guess there's no further comments?
I was going to say, I'm going to start missing a couple of things on purpose to just see if you guys are sleeping over there or actually paying attention.
I think you covered it all, Matt. At least from my perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
This one's a pretty straightforward plan, yeah. And they didn't include any interior drawings for us on the office space at the moment, so we don't know what the interior entails. But if we get further submissions and they start to include the interior drawings, we can have further discussions on whether or not there's any public spaces that we can discuss over there as well.
So I'll call a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? So that carries. 6.3 round table discussion regarding Town of Aurora Accessibility Plan 2018-2024. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Haley,
Haley,
Matthew.
Matthew,
I know
So,
Linda's going to kill me, but it's frozen right now. So I'm trying to get to the to the page you're referring to. Give me one second.
Okay.
Sorry, John, you can continue while I work
Okay.
on this.
so number one, that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding the Town of Aurora Accessibility Plan 2018 to 2024 be received and referred to staff for consideration and action as appropriate.
You guys can all still see my screen, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm just making my
I'm
way
looking
back
on
up.
a cell phone, so yeah, it's not that good, but
Perfect. I got to it now. Okay. And so now that I have it over here, let's go ahead. I'll zoom out just a teeny tiny bit. And so a couple of the discussions that we'll have with our accessibility plan, we will discuss the town tours. But one thing I wanted to talk about quickly was just our operational and capital budget updates, just so everyone's aware of what's happening. This is our last meeting for 2020, so we're closing up quite a bit of our projects. And so what I'll do is I will share, and can you guys see the Excel sheet that I have opened right now?
no.
No?
No.
Okay, let me reshare. Give me 1 second. Go back in. You guys see it now, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so this is just our operational sheet. Rather than me just kind of verbally explaining them all to you, I can just physically show it to you very quickly. So these are the items that have been requested by the Accessibility Advisory Committee throughout 2020. I can very quickly go through them. At the beginning of the year, we went ahead and invested into accessible life jackets and some testing devices for the induction loops that we have positioned out throughout town of Aurora. So that would include all of our public facing facilities. Obviously in 2020, we have had no customers coming through any of our facilities. And so we haven't had the opportunity to actually use the induction loops that we invested into previously. But I have been testing them periodically as I've been going through the facilities as I have come in, and they're all working fine. And so as soon as we kind of reopen to the public, those will be available to be used for patrons. We went ahead in the summertime and did an AbleDocs website report, which gave us our indications as to where we currently stand for WCAG compliance, which is the standard for the Information and Communications Act underneath the AODA. And we did briefly discuss that back in September. And so I will talk a little bit further into that when we get to the capital side of our operations. And so I'm going to leave that one for the time being. We went ahead and purchased our sensory tent project items. I actually went up slightly from what we originally talked about just because of COVID. Our expectations are going to be a little bit different when we do open up to events. And so I purchased, I think it was an extra 2 tents and a couple of more items just to kind of allow for us to have our proper spacing for when we do go ahead and have our live events again in the summer of 2021. Our AFLC door operators, which were requested for the change rooms, were actually complete today. So the electrical work was done 2 weeks ago. Royal Securities came in, which is our vendor on site, to complete the door operators today. So those should have been complete. I will get notification from the team probably tomorrow or Friday just to ensure that there's nothing else that they have to get done. But these are wave operators that we have installed on all of the AFLC change room doors. And so that would have been for the male and female change rooms that were missing them prior. We also went ahead and created, this was earlier in the year, it's just number 6 as an item over here, but we purchased these back at the beginning of the year as well for the induction loops, just signage that we have to place around our facilities. Again, once the public goes back in, the signs will be placed up and available for people's awareness. Item 7, we have the AFLC Spa Railing, which we talked about last meeting. That has been installed. We actually had to have the vendor come back in because there was some height discrepancies with the railing, but they have come back in, fixed it, and concreted it in. So as soon as the spa is back up and available to patrons, the railing is ready to go as well. One of the big projects that we assisted with community services this year, and part of our COVID outreach, was sponsoring and helping out with the Senior Center Without Walls program. We provided $3,000. It was an absolutely amazing success this year. We had hundreds, if not thousands at this point, in terms of participants coming in. And so this was available to all individuals that wanted to call in and participate with the town of Aurora on a variety of programs. And I can speak a little bit more to that if you guys want, but I'll go ahead and continue. And the last item that we have on here was the evac chair purchase. And so it was $17.95. I did have two vendors that I was looking at. I took a look at their references and I went ahead with one that has been used by municipalities. I think it was called Evacscape. If you guys are interested, I'm more than happy to send you guys the link to the chair that we went ahead and purchased. I plan on pulling Max in because this was his big advocation and we will test it on him. So as soon as it's ready, Max, we're ready to put you on the staircase and see how well it does. But that should be coming in next week as well. And so you guys can see through the yellow indications that the door operators and the evac chair are the two that have not been invoiced yet. And so once those are in, obviously our budget will be pretty much eaten up. So we have a current remaining amount of $280, which I plan on probably putting towards some channel cable covers for town hall. Currently on the main floor, they're separating for COVID reasons our staff members on the main floor who are servicing the public through phone calls. And there's cables that are going to be running along the main floor. And so if we do at some point in 2021 open up to the public, we want to ensure that those cables are covered. So these would be low profile channel cable covers for accessibility. But again, that hasn't been fully determined quite yet. We're still discussing that piece, but that's probably what's on my radar to just finish up the budget in terms of our operating budget. And before I continue on with our capital project updates, does anyone have any questions in regards to the operating budget? No surprises on here. It's all items that we've talked about throughout the year. Also, if anyone's waving, I only have a select few people, so just talk. I can't, I don't see anyone.
Okay, so I'm really interested, Councillor Gilliland here, in your just a little expanding on your Senior Center Without Walls. If you can kind of elaborate a little bit on that, I'd be curious to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, so Senior Center Without Walls was something that we initiated originally in 2019. And so we did help them out that year with promoting it. So currently what's happening is we have part-time staff that have been allocated towards basically sitting down and programming events for seniors. Now, it's available to the public, but it's obviously geared towards our senior population, which are usually housebound or obviously in the COVID situation, the most vulnerable sector of our community. And so that obviously leans very heavily into us in terms of accessibility. And so what we've done is expanded the amount of programs that we're offering. And what's included in what we were covering through our budget as well is the operating costs for the phone lines through the vendor that's associated with Senior Center Without Walls. And so we've been, like I said, servicing. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure we were somewhere between 300 to 500 people that we were reaching out to on a monthly basis, which is obviously phenomenal. And so they have a variety of activities. Like a couple of like the basic examples would be like they'd have like a bingo, or they'd have like fact checks where people are able to participate in activities. And what was great about it really was just being able to connect those individuals who are homebound throughout the situation and give them an opportunity just to socialize and interact, not only with the staff members that were running the programs, but with other seniors or individuals with disabilities that aren't able to really get out and socialize. And so that was a great thing to see.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's nice to hear how many people you're able to help through that program, because you know, as a senior, and I'm not a senior, but saying a senior would have a lot of limitations as to the socialization part of it, and it can be very lonely. So thank you so much for taking this on and making a difference. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and community services has been phenomenal with running this program. We were obviously happy to come in and assist them this year with them trying to expand and kind of give opportunities to more individuals to be able to partake this year. because of the success, we're already looking into grants for 2021 to see whether or not we can continue to expand it, continue to reach out to more individuals in our communities. And so the original idea in 2019 was to see if it works. And we have had an explosion in 2020 for obvious reasons this time around. And we're trying to make it a permanent viable option for the town of Aurora moving forward. So we're exploring some opportunities with the federal government on grants that we can use in order to expand and make the program better moving forward.
No, that's awesome. I know that Doug was part of the arts and culture roundtable discussion, and I had mentioned to him as well another phone program that was free, but it was connecting youth to seniors and having conversations. And I don't know if that would be something you want me to, if you guys engaged in that at all, if it's something you want me to at least maybe throw that resource as something that they could still utilize, which from what I understand is something that's at a zero cost. But it wouldn't hurt to at least have something in as a resource available to them.
Always happy to see it. I haven't had anything come by my table quite yet, but if you want to shoot it my way, I'm always happy to look at any new programs or availabilities for the community for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you,
All
Rachel.
right.
Any other questions from the committee? And then we'll move on to capital. No? Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and close that piece. And then I will go ahead and return back to the agenda. Just confirming, just thumbs up is good. You guys see the agenda back up on your screen?
Yes.
Awesome, perfect. And so capital projects. So the last one that we were discussing was the accessible change tables that we were going to be installing at both the Stronach Aurora Recreation Complex and the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. We had a delay with the shipping of the tables to the vendor. But the good thing is we're waiting for it to arrive in Quebec at the moment, but the electrical work has gone ahead. We have completed installing all of the outlets. We have altered the change tables in terms of space because there was benches in there to ensure that we have the appropriate space for the change tables to be installed immediately. And so we're basically ready for both locations to have install be done. And so we are anticipating to get news this week on where the tables sit in terms of its shipping process. But I don't anticipate that we miss 2020 in terms of install. Worst case scenario, it would happen probably in the first week or second week of 2021 for the change tables to be installed. But that wouldn't affect our capital budget timelines in terms of getting it done and having the invoices complete for the calendar year of 2020. So I just wanted to throw that update towards the committee that we're just slightly delayed, but we should still make it in terms of December timeline for having both of them installed for the AFLC and for the Stronach. When they'll be used will obviously come down to when we have our programs coming in more often, but these are going to be very popular amongst our community program groups that do come in regularly to the Stronach and AFLC when we are past the pandemic. The other item I wanted to give you guys an update on, and we spoke about this last time, was the facility accessibility design standards. And so we did have our kickoff meeting with the vendor earlier this month. It went very well. They provided us a couple of examples of prior projects completed in Ontario. They've worked, like I think I mentioned last time, they've worked with Mississauga, Cambridge, London, Ottawa, pretty much all the big players in terms of developing these. And so we're very excited to be working with them. They have vast knowledge and they've been great to chat with and kind of question and see where they plan on taking us. And so what they're planning on doing is giving us a base model to work off of based on the other municipalities. And so what that means is all the other big players in terms of the municipal world have already gone ahead and taken a look at the Ontario Building Code, which is the interior code that we use for accessibility standards. And they have decided what they'd like to see expanded on for all of those code requirements. And so generally speaking, most of them, they've decided whether or not the Ontario Building Code has done a good job of meeting accessibility in the opinions of committees and the accessibility community. And they have gone ahead and expanded on different points from the Ontario Building Code where they feel that there are misses. Now, our facility accessibility design standards will also include, and I think this was one of Rachel's requests when we first talked about this earlier in 2020, was outdoor trails, outdoor play spaces, the outdoors. And so we have made that a part of the RFP. And so that is included in there. So our design standards will not just be an interior based design. It'll also focus on outdoor spaces as well. And so the Accessibility Advisory Committee can expect to see a draft in early 2021. So when we meet in 2021, we will have a draft guideline available for everybody to look at. What this draft will be, again, it will be a base model that has been provided to other municipalities that have already approved the facility accessibility design standards. And what we'll do as a part of like a phase one approach is look at what other municipalities have voted as what they'd like to see as their design standards. And we will go ahead and choose to say whether or not we agree with what they have already done, whether we think something is too severe or whether we think there can be additions onto the requirements that have already been passed by the various municipalities that have their own FADs. And so we will receive that draft and there will be an opportunity obviously for us to sit down as a committee and discuss it together, but very similar to the tours that I provided to you. Obviously there will be some homework where you'll have to read through it and just kind of see what's already included in the draft and see whether or not there's going to be any requirements that you really want to see improved on. And so you will get tons of notice in advance of the committee meeting to read through that draft and then bring obviously your points over to the committee meeting so we can have those discussions. And that will probably be a month-to-month project that we do with the vendor, and they'll come in and go through it with you as well. And so that'll be a big part of our 2021 future is basically taking a look at these guidelines, scrutinizing it and seeing what changes we want to have done to it. And then we should be complete this project in Q2. Q3 would be the absolute latest that we do it. And it's all based on just how much we have in terms of feedback or updates that we want to see in the draft guidelines that the vendor does provide to us. And so I just wanted to kind of put that on the table that we will be seeing that early in 2021, which is fantastic. Does anyone have any questions about that? It's more of like an update, but I'll just ask in case. No? Okay. Nope. I will continue on. One of the other big projects, and so that, by the way, that closes off 2020 for capital projects. Everything is good. Everything is according to plan, which is good. Early in 2021, we're also going to be implementing our information and communication standard project. And so last I spoke to you guys, and I think I've brought it up a couple of times variously in our meetings, is we've been working on getting our compliance up to date for our website. And so Matthew's a great advocate. I get emails from him a lot about social media and a couple of pieces that we need to work on our websites, which is fantastic. So as an update in October and November, we have myself and Dan Johnson, which is our records manager. We have taken on the project of working on our accessibility for web pages and web documents. And so in the month of November, we've gone ahead and trained all staff. So we've sat down with managers, supervisors, and staff members that do uploading of documents to our website. We have trained them on source documentation and how to ensure that it's accessible. So a source document would be anything such as Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Our focus is obviously on Microsoft Word as a foundation document because that's what we convert over to PDF. Now, we've trained all staff members on that. We've created resources and a repository in our internal systems to ensure that we have a funnel to kind of catch documents being placed on our website moving forward. But the project is, it's far from over. So what we're moving towards now is really a purge of our website. And so we have a vast repository of documents right now, and I'm talking thousands on our webpage that we need to go through. And so item one for management was really to go through our web pages, which we have provided hyperlinks to all staff members, and be very critical of what belongs on the website and what doesn't belong on the website moving forward. The easiest way to clean up our website is obviously get rid of stuff that doesn't belong on there or is kind of outdated. And so we're currently in that mode of deciding what's going to be purged and what will be kept. From there, we're deciding what is going to be a simple document and what is going to be a complex document. And so we've created two categories where we plan on teaching staff members to fix and remediate stuff in-house in order to save as much money as possible. But there are definitely going to be documents that we're going to have to outsource. And so those would be considered complex documents. And we're working with staff members right now to identify what we cannot do in-house and what we'll have to take as an RFP in 2021 in terms of helping, having a vendor basically help us with these documents. Now, there is no way around this. I've spoken to like the biggest involved municipalities in how they're working on their information and communication standards in their respective municipalities, and using vendors is almost a must need. And so we're moving towards basically meeting the same thing that other municipalities are doing, just because when you're looking at document accessibility, as I've been working on this over the last couple of years, we don't have the in-house capabilities to work on planning maps or GIS maps or extremely large documents. And so those would be some of the things that we would consider a complex document that we would work with a vendor for remediation. But Dan and I are very happy to work with staff for working on all the simple documents over the next couple of months in order to save as much cost and ensure that we try to meet our information and communications compliance. Our goal is to do it by the end of Q1. And so we've currently trained staff members. Like I said, we're in the process of purging documents. And then over the next couple of months, we're going to be remediating simple documents in-house. Hopefully our goal, and this is our timeline goal right now, is to have them re-uploaded in March, April of 2021. And that we try to meet our 100% compliance with the information and communication standard. One thing I will say as well is the conversations that we've been having amongst municipalities and various large organizations across Ontario is that there needs to be an update in the AODA regarding the information and communication standard, because it is so strict that at any point, if anything is updated or uploaded with even a minor issue, we would technically fall out of compliance. And so the government has received, I would say, as far as I'm aware, 20 to 30 letters directly over to the government of Ontario with the need to update the legislation, and they are working on that. And obviously, when we receive information back from the government of Ontario on what kind of changes they'd be making, the committee would be updated on anything that's happening. Currently, we haven't received anything quite yet. But I wanted to kind of put that on the table. So that will be a big project for the committee, and I will continue to update you guys between all of our meetings on where we stand in terms of our timelines. Overall, the government of Ontario is aware that we plan on achieving everything by the end of Q2 of 2021, and it's been approved. So we're okay in that sense, as long as we continue to meet our timelines. And so I'll be updating both the Accessibility Advisory Committee as well as the government of Ontario on where we stand in terms of that piece. But like I said, we are not alone in this. Every municipality and every organization is currently struggling with the WCAG and information and communication standards for Ontario. I'm sure you guys have questions about that one. So before I move along, I'll open the table up.
I have a question if no one else wants to go first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I guess there's two questions. I'll start with the 30 letters that were sent to the province. So staff or Town of Aurora, we've sent a letter already on behalf of our municipality to the province with this request.
Yep. So our clerk has sent this over to the province, and it's been received. Like I mentioned, our approved new extended timeline is to try to meet compliance by June of 2021. We should be able to meet that goal as long as we don't hit hiccups or bumps on the road. But again, the 20 to 30 letters, this is just going off the top of my head, but there is a list that has been generated based on municipalities that have raised their concerns. The other piece as well, connected to that as well, is the awareness that municipalities have in regards to the standard. And unless you really dive deep in, and like I was mentioning, I've been working on this for a couple of years, and the more you develop your knowledge around what an accessible document is, the more you realize how difficult it is to be compliant. And so a lot of organizations that might actually be signing off that they're compliant on their website and their documents, might very well think that they're compliant, whereas they're not, because, and I can send you guys the hyperlinks for WCAG, which is the World Wide Web Consortium guidelines. So this is not a Canada thing. This is an international piece that guides us on how to be as accessible as possible. But even if people think that they're compliant, I'm saying 99% of them, they probably are just not aware that they're not meeting compliance.
And you've had no response from any of the ministers or the province at all in this regard as of yet, like at least reviewing the request, or?
We haven't heard, no. So like I said, they are looking at, the Accessibility and Seniors Division is looking at the legislation right now in terms of updating it. We don't have a official release of what is going to be the new mandate or what our compliance will look like yet. But the good thing is that they are reviewing it. So they have heard the concerns from Ontario as a whole in terms of where we would like to see this go. Whether they take our feedback or how much of our feedback they take in is, we'll see what that kind of turns out as. But yeah, our clerk sent the letter over to the directorate. I think it was September or October that we sent over it, and they pretty much approved it in about a month's time. And so based on just how quick they responded to us without much questioning, I assume that we are just one of many who are, like I said, sending this letter out and having concerns with how we're going to meet compliance in time for 2021.
I guess my question is, and I don't want to take up everybody's time on this question here. What if we're not compliant by June? Because what you're saying to me, it sounds like you said, the more you learn or have knowledge about an accessible document, the more you realize it's almost impossible to keep up to be compliant. So I feel like we're trying to catch your tail here. So what happens in June if we find we feel like we're sinking and we can't keep our head above water?
Yeah, so I mean, the technical analysis or the way to look at this, if we really want to go to the bone of the legislation, is that there is monetary implications for all organizations that are not meeting the compliance. I would be I doubt that the province would go that route. Like I said, we're one of many, many organizations that are part of this struggle. And so I don't have the correct or the official answer for that, like what we'll kind of stand at. We are going to be as I'm all about transparency until we meet 100%, which I'm telling you is basically impossible. I will continue to say that we are not meeting compliance. We will go to the end of the battle, basically, with trying to get as close to 100% as possible. And we're en route to getting there. But at any point, like I said, if a staff member makes a simple blunder on the website, we immediately revert back into not being compliant. And obviously it'll be a dance going back and forth between being compliant and not compliant. And that's the difficulty with the legislation. And so that's what we're trying to get Ontario to take a look at our concerns with. I don't want to have to say that we're compliant when the next week or the next day, if someone uploads something, just because we have many staff working on our website, that we go back the opposite way. And so that's why I'm saying we'll be as transparent as we possibly can, always with the government basically saying that this is not achievable as a long-term solution. And so we're hoping that the Directorate for Accessibility and Seniors gives us a better insight on where or how we handle the situation. And so we're hoping to hear that before we reach June. But like I said, I'll continue to update you guys month to month on this piece, because this is going to be a big project for us.
Is there a way that I could get that letter that was sent?
I don't see an issue with it. I'll ask Mike to send it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. What my other question was, you were talking about you have thousands of documents to convert, and I understand this is a really huge undertaking. I get it. It's like converting doctors' files to digital and having to scan through thousands of patients' files. It's the same kind of thing. But you did say some were to be purged, and I guess my question is what constitutes a purge document?
So our retention bylaw is really, you shouldn't be keeping old documents on a website unless they're relevant, right? So anything 2 years or older is generally where we would say that, unless it's a legislatively mandated document, and there are those, obviously council, agenda minutes, and a couple of other priority documents have to be maintained on our website and archived. And so those obviously will remain and will be a priority for us to work on immediately. Anything else that's 2 years or older, we're leaving up to all the divisions and departments to make an executive decision as to whether or not they think it's beneficial to the public. And so one way that we're taking a look at that and helping staff members out is we have the analytics on each of the web pages for the town of Aurora, and we're seeing how often people are visiting or accessing those specific documents. And so that's also a way we're taking a look at which ones we might keep or which ones we might remove. Now, staff might decide that we want to keep all the documents on there because it's beneficial for the community, and that's okay. And so that goes into what I was mentioning previously. So a good chunk of the documents are fairly simple, and the training that I have provided over to staff members will assist with them remediating those documents in-house, and we'll kind of process that. So each of the divisions is basically responsible for their areas. They'll take those documents, they'll stay on the website, but they'll work on the documents on their internal servers. And as soon as they remediate them, we'll basically do a swap. And so that's how we plan on working on the simple documents. And like I said, in early 2021, we're looking to contract a vendor to help us out with a lot more of the complex documents, which we cannot handle in-house.
Great. Okay. So if I may, if you had you have a handful that are purged and you feel is no longer on that relevant bucket, is there some sort of is this something you keep in perpetuity offline? If there is something specific, could someone ask for an FOI on something? I'm asking a lot of questions here. And then is there some sort of disclosure there to say if there is additional information, please contact the clerk? You often see that on other municipality website. I know I've asked a lot there, so I can hope for some clarity on that.
Yep. So all of our documents must be upheld by the records bylaw. And so anything that is to be FOIable will remain FOIable. So whether or not it's accessible through our public page versus being permanently disposed of, I think is what your concern is. We're not planning on permanently disposing of documents that aren't meant to be just disposed. And so any of the documents that need to remain available to the public will always be available to the public. And so if they want to FOI information or request information, we will always provide it based on our bylaws. And so we're basically, like I said, we're trying, it's like we say purge, we're cleaning up the website. So anything that doesn't belong on there, it's easier for staff, right? So if we don't have to remediate something that people are not using or are not finding valuable, we're just going to take it down off the website. But if it's something that needs to remain available and is a part of our records bylaw, it won't be destroyed, I guess is the better way to define it.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate hearing that, just for clarity to understand.
Yep.
And then I guess my only request, and this would, I guess, fall in the category for every department that might be doing some purging, is just some sort of disclosure within that area. Because if I was, looking something up and, I didn't want to be in Parks and Rec, but I was looking at accessibility, I think every section should have some sort of disclosure. If you require additional information on certain topics or whatnot, contact the clerk or whoever that appropriate person would be if there's additional information. And if there is, there is. If there's not, there's not. And then at least that person will be directed to a different channel and understanding that there is that option. Because right now it's with the assumption that everything that's online is everything that we have. And in fact, that's really not true. So that would be my only request or comment into that.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I think we do have, I know Dwayne, who's our coordinator in the corporate communications, has been working on having feedback forms available on our web pages, but that's a fair point. I'm more than happy to speak to the divisions and departments, and while I'm working with them, if, like I said, this is an if they are deciding to remove any of the documents on the pages, and there's a need to add in like a feedback form or just like a very simple statement of who to communicate in that division and department, that's an easy fix, and we're more than happy to add that in all the web pages.
Perfect. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you for your questions, Rachel. Those are all good.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
So my question is, I noticed that a lot of our political staff, like our political elected people, are creating content. Are they going to get trained too?
So right now we're focusing. Our focus is anything on our Town of Aurora pages, what we as staff members own. And so anything that council does outside of Town of Aurora, that's not a part of this phased project. And so I'm more than happy to sit down with council and train them. Social media is very interesting. And I know you've been setting a couple of social media options. Social media hasn't been well addressed, I'll put it that way, in WCAG standards quite yet. So it's very basic. Like they ask for alternative text on images and like some very, very, very minute requirements. And so those are all very easy to apply. And so what we're going to be doing in the next couple of months is making sure that all of our social media posts also meet those simple requirements. I plan on actually doing a big revamp of our accessibility page to have basically all those guidelines available to the public to be aware of your point, Matthew, which is just making sure that your social media posts and everything else, not just for the town of Aurora, but for anyone else that might be posting in those social media platforms, that they're aware of what they can do on the coding side of things, what they can do to improve accessibility in their social media platforms. But no, our plan was not to address council at this point, just because that's not our platform to be addressing. But I'm more than happy to, if that's something that the Accessibility Advisory Committee would like for me to kind of pursue and sit down with council and educate them on those pieces, I'm more than happy to do that as well.
Okay. And then another question is, how about, I was listening to what Councillor Gillen was saying, and how about adding like an index or a database of all the unlisted items, so it'd be easy for people to look up. So like just have the titles of what the asset that was delisted in a document that can be requested, so that people can see what we have in the back catalog.
I can't speak on behalf of corporate communications, like how that would look.
Because I know
I'd have to get back to you on that, Matthew, because like I said, I don't know that there's the value of having a database or a hyperlink base of everything that we've had listed on there. I don't have anything per se against it, but I'd have to ask corporate communications what their thoughts are on that, just because that's outside of our reach as the Accessibility Advisory Committee. But I'm happy to ask them and get back to you on that piece.
Yeah, because I know with the a couple of the boards and stuff in other municipalities, they're keeping a list of the file names in a document. So they're not keeping hyperlinks; they're just keeping the file names.
Yep. Yeah. I'm happy to ask them. I think they're going. I can tell you, I think they're going to be reluctant to doing that, but I'm more than happy to ask. I have no concerns with that. It doesn't affect me is what I'm getting at. So I'm more than happy to ask on behalf of you and see where they'd like to kind of go with that. And like I said, we might not even be taking down that many documents. I could even bring the list over to the committee to show you what documents are being taken down, and we can basically decide whether or not they're of value to even do something like that. Because if it's like one or two, like, I don't know that we're going to build a whole web page specifically to just hosting, saying, hey, here are some of the documents that are archived or we've taken off, or here what's also available. But that'll be a question I have to send to corporate communications first, and we'd have to kind of see how that would look. And like I said, in the new year is, I guess, the next time we'll be meeting, I can get back to you on that piece in our accessibility plan update.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Those are all good questions. Thanks, guys. Any other ones? Okay. Continuing on. What's that? Sorry.
Point? That was the last point?
We're going to go into actually talking about the town tours as well, which falls under the accessibility plan. So okay. I sent over the hyperlinks for videos for both the Aurora Family Leisure Complex and for Town Hall. I've learned a lot from running those videos, so I don't want to hear your judgment on how the videos ran, but they will improve in further ones. And so next time we'll have 2 more facilities for you guys to take a view. Max, I know you had a couple of items that you've listed off, but I'll open the floor to the committee to see what they thought of the videos and what they'd like to see in terms of potential operational and capital projects for 2021 and moving forward, actually. So time for you guys to talk.
Anyone?
I have a couple things.
Yeah, good.
First of all, the tours were great. I really, found them very informative. As a new member, I've never actually been on like an on-site tour, so I was kind of interested to see how how that would work and what kind of things we'd be paying attention to. So a couple of small things I noted, and it's just, I don't know if it's things that can be changed or not. 3 points. One was I noticed at both locations, sort of the sort of drive-in or roll-in stations at the counters.
Yep.
Wheelchairs. I don't know, is depth something that's taken into account? Because, and I don't know, and I haven't been at the leisure complex recently at all, nor the town hall, so I can't go from memory here, but I know from experience that those sort of designated counter spots are often not deep enough. And I find, and I don't know, it always runs through my head, how are they testing these things? Are they using a normal chair or an actual wheelchair? Because wheelchairs have footrests and their length is a lot, longer than regular chairs. And I find those sort of designated indented spots often aren't indented enough. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case in these two buildings, just having looked at them briefly. So I don't know, I guess I was asking you, Matt, or anyone, if they know, like, whether or not, is there a certain standard depth that they make for those sort of indentations? Because they're really kind of useless if you can't really drive in and really reach, because that's the whole point. And I've been frustrated on a number of accounts because of that. So I guess I don't know if that can be sort of addressed, or if maybe they're fine, but I don't know if you can tell me offhand whether they're quite deep or.
No. And that's a fantastic point. And that actually is why we're building what we were talking about earlier, the facility accessibly design standards. That's exactly why we're doing that, is so in future buildings or future renovations, we actually have expectations on pieces like height, depth, everything. And so you're correct. They are fairly shallow. They're quote unquote accessible in terms of, like, there is an opportunity to roll in. But to your point, I completely agree in terms of, like, the depth of a real wheelchair where you have your leg extensions and everything else. Most individuals that would be going up to those counters would still have to roll in and be parallel and view the customer service or business support staff from a parallel view versus actually facing them perpendicular. And so that would be addressed in the facility accessibility design standards. So that's definitely a great point. And one of the discussion points that we did have as a committee, the committee prior to you guys, the previous term, was we were looking at creating accessible counters at Town Hall as a whole, because we have 3 floors. And we're waiting for a larger Town Hall renovation to happen. But that's exactly where we would apply that kind of standard, Rochelle.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's great. So I'm glad to hear that that's sort of already on the radar. Another thing sort of related, and this is now moving into the change rooms and the washrooms in the change rooms. Just from the tour, and I kind of had to pause the video a couple times to take a look closely, but and this has to do again with sort of accessibility up to the counter, the sink counters. And this again is something that I've noticed quite often in public washrooms, is the sinks, while they are, barrier free, there's that sort of ledge that runs underneath the counter. And so I don't know, I'm wondering, because again, this is something that I often have trouble with, is driving underneath the sinks and, hitting my knees against the ledge that's often there. And I don't know if it's there for sanitary reasons or aesthetics or what, but it often basically prevents me from reaching the sink. So I don't know, I guess I'm wondering at what height they measure. Do they measure from the lowest height of the ledge or from the top of the counter? Because again, looking at the video and trying to go from my memory, again, it's been a while since I've been at either place, but I'm thinking maybe I might not be able to even get under those counters with those ledges. And not all of the washrooms that you had in the video had the sort of the counter ledges. A lot of the sinks were standalones, so I don't know. I'm wondering if that's something that can maybe a recommendation can be put forward, that, those ledges not be there, because it just makes it so much more difficult.
Yep. And that's also a great point. And this is why I'm very happy that we are going ahead and building the facility accessibility design standards, because that's also an excellent example of what would be included in that. And that's why I've been pushing so hard for that to be done at the town of Aurora, is because whenever we do any of our renovations, all of those things are going to be accounted for. So exactly what you were asking for in terms of knowing what the height or the depth is going to be for any of the counters, whether we're talking about customer service, counters for washrooms for people to be able to go wash their hands at the sanitary stations. That would be all addressed from both written actual code. And then we're going to be providing diagrams showing exactly what we're talking about too. So in the diagram, you would have a picture of someone that's using any kind of assistive technology, right? In your case, you're talking about wheelchairs coming in. And so, sorry, my dog's pushing on me here. Thank you, Gil. What we would be having over there is a diagram showing someone rolling in basically, and what the expectation is, to your point. If my chair has this much depth with my feet and I have this much height for me, I have to still be able to roll underneath that ledge, is what you're regarding to. And so, yes, we will be indicating that in all of our drawings moving forward. And so that can also be addressed as some of our renovations that we do. If we decide to look at some of the locations that we think is a problem specifically, we can address that as well. But in terms of doing it, I would wait until we develop our FADs, so that way we have an appropriate document to follow in terms of knowing what our standard expectations are going to be for both height, width, and depth.
Perfect. One final thing.
Yeah.
The grab rails on the side of the toilets, they're too far forward. They're not at all beside the toilet, which I don't know I don't know why that decision was made, because I mean, they're not just grab rails, they're support rails, right? And I know that, for myself and other, any sort of disabled person who's using those toilet stalls, it is, it's a matter of support and having, balance sitting there. And so I myself use those rails, but I can't very well use them when they're sort of like 3 feet away from the toilet. And so I find that you're often having to sort of lean on the what's it called? The toilet paper dispenser, which is kind of gross and awkward. So I think that those rails really need to be either sort of lengthened and elongated or else moved back.
Yep. And so I wrote that one down because that's a simple address that we can do. And so what I can do is take a look at the new Ontario Building Code standards. So our facilities are all a little bit older, so they'd be old code requirements. That doesn't mean that they didn't push them out too close or too far from the washrooms. And so I'm more than happy to work with our operations team to measure all of them basically and ensure that they do meet the code. And then as we do those our renovations in future years, which I think is a good push for us to do, I think in capital projects, is really work towards having proper universal washrooms. And universal doesn't refer to gender. I'm talking universal in terms of accessibility, where we have proper rails, proper heights, toilets, doorways that have door operators, emergency buttons. Those are all included in the new Ontario Building Code standards. It would be included in the facility accessibility design standards that we include as well. But I think those would be some good initiatives that we start working on, because to your point, Rochelle, of all things that the public use regularly at our facilities is washrooms. And so a lot of our washrooms are very old, very outdated. And I think that would be a good change and initiative that we plan for over the years. And so I can start working on seeing what costs look like for doing a universal washroom. And I think that would be a good start for us as we kind of take a look at these facilities and make sure that we do have a true universal washroom at all of them.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm just writing all those down.
Just a quick request, Matt.
Yep, go ahead.
I did see your town tours come in. I apologize, I missed last meeting. And I thought maybe it would be a good exercise of those lists that we received before the pandemic, when we're about to actually do our physical tours. Maybe if we had that list emailed to us again, and then maybe to have another look at those videos and have the opportunity to comment next meeting as well. Because I don't know if everybody has that list on hand or has had a chance to watch the video.
Sorry, Rachel, these are the lists with what we look for plants, right? Like that, is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about? Yep.
Yeah, because I don't know if it was handed out last week or not, or not last week, but last meeting. But I recall getting this list, but it was so long ago. I'm not so sure I know where that is, to be quite honest.
No problem.
So,
I'm actually going to update that as well because
okay.
there's more detail that
And
we
I
can
think
always
we got,
add to
and I
them.
think we got a paper copy. I don't even think
Yep.
it was an actual electric copy.
Yep.
So I don't know if the rest of the committee would be okay with that, but you know, it might be nice to take a little extra time to watch those videos again with that list in hand, and maybe provide some additional feedback next meeting. And if you do another town tour and there's more to watch, woohoo, get some popcorn out and let's go.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Rachel. I will send that out to all the AAC members in a digital form, and then you guys are more than welcome to rewatch the videos that we already have. And like I said, every meeting that we have, we'll have more site plans to take a look at. So next time I'll send another 2. I'll probably send over the Stronach Aurora Recreation Complex and our senior center. And so I went with our 4 like busiest buildings first. And so we'll address those ones and then we'll continue on from there. But that's a good point. I will send that out, Rachel.
Max.
Hit me, Max. Go for it.
So my main question when I was going to the AFLC is what
Max, hold on, because your connection is, it might just be me, but you're completely cutting out. I've lost you at the AFLC. So can you start that piece over again? Sorry about that.
I noticed that there were a lot of doors at the AFLC without door openers, and I want to ask, is there any legislation as to what doors need openers?
Yeah, so just for the rest of the committee, in case they missed anything there. So Max was referring to the Aurora Family Leisure Complex and the lack of door operators for some of the rooms, right, Max? And so to answer your question in terms of legislative requirements, and so there are legislative requirements in the Ontario Building Code. So this wouldn't be the AODA. The Ontario Building Code addresses making sure that you have accessible public entrances into the building. And I'd have to just even double check myself on here, but I'm pretty certain it doesn't speak exactly to the actual interior doorways. And so it does specifically talk about some doorways in the inside. And so universal washrooms, those kind of things, those would be included in the code in terms of ensuring that they do have automatic door openers in order for them to be able to access those rooms or those facility availabilities. But I don't think it doesn't specify. So the answer is no, it does not specify, as I'm 99% sure on this, to what doors need to have door operators and which ones do not have to have door operators. It only gives a very minimum standard for entrances into the building and some very few rooms such as washrooms. So that's why there's a couple of doorways at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex that don't have those door operators. And those would be some easy projects for us to obviously install for heavy traffic areas for sure.
I just noticed the lifeguard office, the referee office, and all hockey locker rooms. And my question would be, would the public need to access those? I would assume yes, but I'm not a lifeguard or a referee.
So I'm going to apologize if I got it wrong because you're still cutting off for me, but I'm pretty sure between the sentences I got what you were getting at. So you're asking about staff specific rooms. So the lifeguard office or any other staff rooms that we have at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, and whether or not public would be accessing those locations, right? Did I get the gist of it, Max? Yeah, okay. So there are instances where yes, staff and public would interact in those offices. So you're in regards to your specific question for the lifeguard office, there are cases where there are emergencies or even minor injuries where public would have to enter into those rooms and get treated. And so, yes, there are instances where the public would be going into those, but those would be considered accidents or emergencies or some other reason. And so it's not like you wouldn't see regular public traffic flow coming through any of those offices is what I'm getting at. So it's very minimal into any of those areas. And security has, so the AFLC is a good example of a public facility, but for example, like Town Hall or the Joint Operations Center, those are very locked off to the public. And so there wouldn't be any basically admittance for the public to enter into some of those staff areas. So really the AFLC and maybe the Stronach would have the most potential public flow into some staff related areas in those facilities. And so there could be the argument for us to add door operators to those areas as well, just for the ease of having an injured patron or community member come into those areas.
Or a disabled
Yep.
staff member.
For the lifeguarding industry, we probably won't get a lot of individuals with disabilities coming in, but I do gather your point, Max, and it is valid. So we can, like I said, I'm more than happy to consider. The one thing with door operators in general, you can see from our budget over there, they are very pricey to do single door operators. And so I think we would have to choose what would have the most traffic flow first in terms of which areas we start to add those operators to and which ones would be lower priority. So what I can do is gather a list. I can basically give you guys like a chart of all the doors that don't have the door operators right now in high public traffic areas. And then we can start designating which ones we think would be a priority to address first. And then we can kind of build that list. So that way we have something year to year as to what we will be doing next.
My other comment, as you were mentioning before, would be you never saw shoes. I noticed that there are no universal rules in town hall and the arena. I think if we were to renovate, that would be a thing I would put because there's several some attendants that will need to assist someone of the other gender.
So just to make sure I got it correct, I think you were just discussing the lack of universal, like true universal washrooms that we have at either in these two videos for Town Hall or for the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, right? Like I'm paraphrasing, but that's it, right, Max? Yep. So no, so right now, so just for the committee as a whole, the new legislation and the new Ontario Building Code does mandate that every facility, if you're building a washroom, that it does have a universal washroom. And again, universal is not built in the Ontario Building Code for, and I do the air quotes because I don't want to miscategorize it as in terms of gender or sex. The universal washrooms that are built in the Ontario Building Code are standards set for what's expected for accessibility. Now, obviously it has dual roles. It's not even dual. It could have many roles in terms of also having assistance for gender and sex. But no, we don't have any universal washrooms currently at either Town Hall or for the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. I'm a big advocate of going ahead and building those, like I said, for a variety of reasons, because it allows for people, and what covers that area, Max, as well, is obviously our family change rooms. A lot of municipalities are just changing a sign saying that family change room is now just a universal washroom. So that is one alternative, but I would like to go down the route, to your point, of doing some renovations where at least each facility has a true universal washroom available to the public to be used. And I think that's a great point that we can start adding on to our accessibility plan. And I'm happy to redraft it. And like before our redraft would happen, I would give you timelines that I think would be appropriate with the financial implications as well as what those costs would look like. And then we would have to go through the regular steps of going through budget application through council throughout the years, obviously, to get approval for those projects. But we can definitely start adding them into our accessibility plan moving forward from 2022 on. Did I get everything there, Max?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other comments? Those were all great, by the way. I wrote them all down. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to add in? And if you didn't have a chance to watch it, like Rachel was saying, I'll send over the checklist for you guys as well. So that will obviously assist you guys as you're going through the videos. That was a great point. I should have thought of that myself. So I'll definitely send that out to you guys to help you guys go through that process. But yeah, anything else that you guys like to add in? So I've got right now, looking at the grab rails for both the facilities, taking a look at universal washrooms for those facilities, what the budget cost would be and what would be an appropriate timeline for us to start addressing them. Sending out the checklist over to the committee and giving you a priority list on door operators that have high public flow through the Aurora Family Leisure Complex and Town Hall. So that's what I've got written down so far. Okay,
So Matt, is there anything else on?
Nope, that's what I was going to say. That's it for the accessibility plan items for me.
Okay. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that carries. So number 7, informational items. 7.1, verbal update from the accessibility advisory regarding the Library Square construction parking update. So this is an added item. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor?
Matthew.
Matthew, second.
Rochelle?
Rochelle, thank you. Matt, back over to you.
Yep. Linda's going to kill me because I pulled down the wrong agenda and my number 7 doesn't show the item. So Linda, I'm sorry, don't yell at me yet. But yeah, so as an additional item, so we had the Library Square team reach out to me earlier this week, actually, with a little bit of an update. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will pull down a very basic map that was sent over to me earlier today. And I will share that over with you guys. So give me 2 seconds. Sorry, guys, I have it here. It's just giving me a hard time. Bear with me here 1 second. Okay, share. You guys should be able to see it now. You guys can see the map in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And so what this basically is so the overall update basically on what's happening right now. So they're currently working on Church Street. And they're going to be removing, previously we were talking about the parking lot that we had available for temporary parking. So they're going to be closing that off right now because they're going to need to start working on Church Street. So we currently do have the pickup drop-off program that's happening at Library Square. That's going to continue. And so if you guys can see my mouse, you can see obviously the box over here. This is Yonge Street, north and southbound. And so we're going to continue to have available that program for people with barrier-free permits to be able to come onto Yonge Street during their designated pickup drop-off times. And a staff member will be able to come to their vehicle directly and assist them. Now, what we've also been able to go ahead and do is there is a plaza connected right next to the construction site. And so we have now designated 2 new barrier-free parking spots. These are not going to be painted on because these are temporary measures that we're doing, obviously, as construction proceeds at Library Square. But we have put up, or the signage is going to be put up for the 2 closest spots in the adjoining parking lot over there, right next to library construction. And so we now have 2 barrier-free spots right next to it. And you can see basically the small path that's been drawn up. And so they're going to be closing off the entrance to the main part. So the west front entrance for the library, that's not going to be available. They're going to have an accessible route along that path. So for those of you that are aware of how Library Square looks right now, is there's that little north path in between the parking lot and the building. And so there is going to be an entrance that's going to be made accessible in order to enter into the library from there. And so we basically have 2 options available that have improved from what we had previously for the public, where there's going to be those that do want to be able to physically park and go into the library themselves and take care of themselves. And so there's going to be 2 designated spots and a short route for them to be able to enter into the library. And then we will continue with our pickup drop-off service at the front of the library right now. And so that's the basic update that I'm providing over to you guys. As far as I'm aware, and Rachel, you might be able to jump in on this because you probably talk about it at council a little bit more than I'm aware of. But I think Victoria Street parking has been completed. They're just waiting for better weather to do the lines for those parking spots on Victoria Street. That's obviously a far route, but if there is anyone that wants to have a barrier-free parking spot and is capable of doing a longer trek, Victoria Street would be an option as well. And then obviously we have a little bit further northbound, we have our on-street parking available as well. But both of those I would consider a fair trek away from the main entrance. And so we have provided 2 very close options for the public to use while we go through this construction phase on Yonge Street. But yeah, just a verbal update. And I just want to see, I don't think there would be any concerns, but obviously we'll open it up to the committee to see if there's any comments on that. But it's an improvement on top of what we already did previously.
Question, because I just don't, I never, this is the first time I'm seeing this map, even though we've had discussions, and forgive me, I'm just a little confused as to where's Yonge and Church in conjunction to this map. I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
Could
so
you
can you see my mouse, Rachel? Kind of
yeah.
spinning around. So this is Yonge Street right over here.
Yeah.
This is Yonge Street, and that's all we're showing. So this is basically the northwest tip of the library square over here on
Okay.
Yonge Street. So you're not seeing Church Street. Church would be down over here where they're going to be working on construction, and obviously Victoria Street would be further up, and that's where the parking lot would be. And so that's what I was saying. They're going to be currently working on Church Street, which is the South Street on behind the library. And so that's why they're going to be closing off that previous, there was like that 15-person parking spot that we had approved over there. So that's going to be being closed off. So like I said, now we had to find an alternative barrier-free parking spot. And so we're going to be using the plaza that's adjoint to Library
Totally makes
Square
sense.
project. And this is Yonge Street where we have the pickup spot. So is that a little bit more clear?
Yeah, totally. I got it. Thank you. I just think I missed the very maybe opening sentence and I just
Yeah,
didn't
no
couldn't
problem.
connect the dots.
I am sorry, but I haven't seen that pass before. Is that pass normally closed, and if doesn't lead to a barrier free entrance?
So great question, Max. Previously, I don't know if it was plowed. Obviously, right now it will be because we're making this our main route into the building. In terms of your question, is it a true barrier-free entrance? I actually have to go on site to check and ask that, because that was one of the discussions that I did have with the operations lead on that piece, is how we can make, because that's a current side door that I believe leads into, as far as I'm aware, I think there's like a cafe or something in library right now. And so I don't know if this is a part of the new plan or the old plans, but I plan on going in this week or early next week to see whether or not, to your point, if there's like a curb entering into that entrance, because otherwise it's not truly accessible. My hunch is that it won't be a true accessible entrance, and that's why we're emphasizing the pickup drop-off program, is so that we have both options available. So there may be some limitations, but I don't have that answer right now.
Can we get a temporary ramp?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're talking about, like when we check it out, is we can install a temporary ramp. I also want to see the timelines of how long this is going to be the priority entrance coming into the library, because by the time we build or buy a ramp to cover that area, they might be moving on to a different section of the project. So yeah, more than happy to explore that option. But it'll be based, I think, on timelines, because if they're going to move on from this in a month or two, by the time either, because some of our staff can build a ramp, or if we go ahead and purchase something, then it might not even make it in time by the time they reopen another true barrier-free entrance. So I'm more than happy to update the committee on that piece once I go and do a site visit.
My last question is, I'm sorry to ask, but do you know of any future limitations of parking and entrances due to the construction that we will have to work around as the accessibility committee?
So I might need you to repeat a little bit, Max, but let me just paraphrase quickly to make sure maybe I did catch it. You were asking whether or not there's going to be any limitations that we're aware of with this piece of the construction. Am I getting that?
Yeah.
Okay, can you repeat, please?
Also, I'm just wondering if there will be any future accessible limitations that can be worked around before we go into further portions of this construction.
I might need you to type out some of it, Max. I apologize. I know we usually communicate very smoothly, but like I said, I'm just having some issues with this one. So as far as I heard, is there anything that we can look in advance for in terms of accessibility limitations prior to like going into construction? I was hearing, and again, like I'm chopping up with you, but I was hearing the word fields, and I don't think that's what you were talking to, or maybe you were, right? No. But if you don't mind clarifying through the chat, that would be helpful. I don't want to misinterpret what you're saying, if you don't mind. And then while Max is typing that piece in, we'll wait and just see if anyone else has any questions. Sorry about that, Max. No other questions from committee members? Okay, so I'm going to close this down, and then we'll just wait for Max to type that in. Again, Max, sorry about that. Usually I catch everything that you're saying, but I missed that one. It's on me. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Max here while he's typing away.
Sure.
Okay. Any future limitations? So
Max
okay.
is, sorry, while Max is
Yeah, go
chatting,
ahead.
if I may, because I think we're pretty much done with all the agenda items. I'm not so sure if you're aware, Matt, but and I don't think it's been ratified at council as of yet, but councillors are changing committees after 2 years. This is something that's new. And so some of us are being reassigned to other committees just for the purpose of, broadening our minds and, having our hand in many different committees to understand what everybody's going through. I think it's a great idea that, we do experience everything that the town has to offer and the community and whatnot. So in this particular committee, John Gallo has been reassigned to this committee. So I believe he'd be starting next meeting, but I'm not 100% certain. So I don't know if Mr. Mayor Maracas he's there. Maybe he would like to speak to that. I'm just not so sure when that actually would commence. He's there. Maybe he's not.
If that's the case, which I'm assuming you guys are just waiting for official approval from Council, Rachel, it's been a pleasure working with you. I enjoyed some of the intensity of your questions, and I liked how detailed you were in being involved in this. So it's been a pleasure working with you throughout, and I'm sure the rest of the committee will comment on that. But I've enjoyed our time, and thank you for joining us on the Accessibility Advisory Committee over the 2 years.
Yes, and again, I wanted to just thank all of you for being on this committee and being so supportive and engaged. And, I just love the feedback that I'm getting from you guys. And, I certainly I'm not going to say I know it all, because I'm going to stay in my lane here. You guys are the experts and understanding where the needs are. And Matt, you have been absolutely fantastic. I've always spoken so highly of you and how much hard work that you do, and making sure we're AODA compliant as much as we possibly can. And of course, asking above and beyond when we can, and, hopefully, winning a few on our side. And of course, some of the events and stuff has been successful, even like the Rib Fest, and having like the extra protection on the cabling. And at one point we had that washroom, and we were kind of going through all of that as well. And now we have these tours. So this is some fun stuff that we're doing, and I'm kind of going to miss that part. So you guys, enjoy those videos and the tours of the town. And by all means, just keep on asking us to do stuff. I mean, that's why you're here. This is your chance to give us some input, especially in that roundtable discussion part. Like that's where you guys get to, the mic's yours. And we really want to hear that feedback. So anyways, it's a pleasure working with all you guys. And I'm sure I'll see you around. Max, I've seen you scooting around on the street and saying hello and stuff. So I'm sure I'll see you around. And I know, John, I know you're up on is it Kennedy there?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm sure I'll see you around there as well. But and Haley's been pretty busy with her crew, and I'll miss you guys. So, but I'll see you around town, that's for sure. Especially when things become a bit more back to normal. We're out on the streets probably a little bit more, but we'll keep in touch.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, Max. Are you done typing?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone put their piece in. Thanks again, Rachel. Like I said, I really did appreciate our time together, and I'm sure I'll be talking with you and seeing you throughout the next term anyway. So we'll stay in touch for sure. Going to Max's questions. I was close, Max, but not quite. But any further limitations that will occur throughout construction? So the first phase is really the problem phase as they're building Church Street. So Church Street, if you guys remember, and I don't have the site plan with me, but there is going to be on-street accessible parking that will be available on that roadway. So as soon as this Church Street parking is done, a lot of our issues will be solved, because there will be a connected exterior path of travel to the on-street parking that's available on Church Street. Right now, the issue, and this is why I'm saying later on it'll be a good option, is right now, because there is a current exterior path of travel, they're going to have to work on that sidewalk. They're going to have to add in the parking, and they're going to have to level it to make sure that the grade between the on-street parking and the path of travel is appropriate. So it'll be probably a little bit before that's available. But as soon as that is there, we shouldn't have to address any more of these severe issues with accessibility entrance into the library. But that's a great question. And so rather than us including myself, these last minute updates, I'd like to see more of I think we want to all see a timeline for potentially any limitations that we might encounter for a library square, so we can start working on them in advance rather than kind of doing these quick updates and any comments kind of situations. So thanks for bringing that up, Max. Actually, I'll address that with the team. And I do want to get a timeline of other expectations that are coming up in library. Maybe Rachel can jump in when I'm done with my spiel on that, but we can definitely get that for the new year, so we're more aware of what we can expect. So great point.
No problem. I know this was a surprise.
Yep. Yeah, I heard about it just this week. So we're working. I mean, every team is working with the conditions, right? There's weather, there's a whole bunch of other things that people are working with in terms of this project. And so some things get missed or overlooked, but it still got caught, which is the good thing. Like, people are aware, which is great. And so at least they did bring it up. And now that you brought up that question, we'll ask for some timelines so we're more aware of where the stages are going to be for this project. So I just wrote that down. Thanks, Max. Any other comments, questions?
Nothing further? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Vote carries. So our next item is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
No.
No.
Haley.
Haley
Nice.
and Max.
Perfect. Well,
So all in favor, sorry, you gotta do that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go. Well, that carries.
Perfect. So I'll let Linda jump in on this one. I don't know if Clerks has made it official. December is always quiet in terms of plans and everything coming through. So we don't currently have any items scheduled for the January agenda. For the last couple of years, we haven't had a January meeting, but I'll let Linda just jump in now that we have adjourned, and she can maybe speak to whether or not it's been made official, whether we're going to be going ahead with just our February start for 2021.
The only pressing thing on the agenda would be selecting a new chair and vice chair.